Okay, so I'm going to try and do a quick video here on fill volumes. This is going to be using the i3D exporter from the GitHub. So just type in there i3D exporter pop-ups and then go to this page by this particular person. I think there are others involved, but release, and then you want version 2.0.0. This is for Blender 2.91, so you need to make sure you're running Blender 2.91 for this to work. There are other versions available back to 2.83, but this is the latest one. And you have to remember all of this is in alpha, so I would recommend to always work with the latest one because it'll have a lot of bug fixes and things like that. Click on the i3D exporter and then choose your location, download it. Once you've downloaded it, open up Blender 2.91 and you want to go Edit, Preferences, in the add-ons, click Install, find where you've got it. Mine's in here, 2.91 i3D exporter zip. Click Install Add-on and it will then bring up this one here, Unofficial Giants i3D Export Tools. Put a tick in the box, expand this out, and then you need to look for your FarmSim data folder. Mine's on my E drive because I've got a disk version. So if you're running Steam, it'll be Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and so on and so on. Just click on the folder, browse to where it is, and click Accept, and it will put the information. If you don't add that, it will throw up errors, and you won't have access to certain functionality of the exporter because it requires that to locate where the shaders are and things like that to work properly. Once you've got all of that, click Save Preferences, and it will always be available every time you start Blender up next. And then you can close that down. So I've got a trailer here I'm going to play around with. This is one that I converted from 17. It does already have a fill volume, but I'm going to regenerate it or recreate it just to show the process that I went through. And hopefully we'll have the same results and it'll all work. So I'm going to get rid of the cover here just so you can see what we're doing. And if I click on the fill volume, there it is. So what I want to do is have something that I can create my fill volume on. Obviously, if I just try and create an object in Blender, I have no idea if it's going to be the right size and everything else. So I want a reference object to kind of base the fill volume on. So I'm going to export the body. So if I take this, we just use the name there, and I'm just going to go File, Export Selection, and we'll put it on the desktop. So we'll go here, and we'll paste in the name, and then change it from i3D to Wavefront OBJ. Click Save, and then we can close that down. We don't need this open while we're doing that. And then we've got our OBJ, so we're going to come in here, A to select everything, and we'll just get rid of all that. What I will do is just turn this on, and we'll bring this somewhere like that so you can actually see what I'm pressing key-wise. If it helps any, I'm going to collapse this. I don't need the timeline, so I'll right-click, join areas, drag down. Just gives me a bit more space to work with. Now I do have my scene here, the UI is scaled in quite a lot because by default all the writing is really small and I can't read it, so I have actually zoomed in my interface so I can see everything a bit clearer, but if you're wondering, but anyway, whatever. So just go File, Import, Wavefront OBJ, Desktop, on the body, and there we go. Now you could potentially here just start creating an object, bring in a cube, and then start manipulating it, but in this particular case, because I've already got the geometry here, I can use the body to kind of help me create what I want. And this already has some of the shade, already has the shade smooth applied and various other different things, but some of it we're going to have to remove and then put back on again later on. So what I'm going to do here is tab into edit mode, and I'm going to merge the verts because this would have had edge split, or I know I did put edge split on it when I exported it previously when I was converting it over to UDIM. So I want to remove the edge split, and we do that by merging the vertices. So we're going to press M and bring up the merge panel here and merge by distance. This looks like it's broken it, but because basically it has the shade smooth applied, when you remove the verts, it has all of that data stored in the geometry, so we need to basically clear that data out so that it can start afresh. So we do that by coming over to the properties panel. We want the object data properties, so we click here, I'm going to scroll down to geometry data and clear out the custom split normal data, and this then puts the shading back to its default of a 30-degree angle on the auto smooth, which is what we want. In this particular case, that may be different for other models or other objects. And then I also want to remove the triangulation because the Giants engine uses triangles to work with. We want to work with quads when we're in Blender. So I want to remove the triangles. What I'm going to do is switch into face mode by pressing 3 on the keyboard. We'll select everything with A, go to face and tries to quads. And as many as it can possibly do, it will convert them into quads, which is basically 4 verts per face, which is what we want. And then we're going to use the geometry here to create what we need. So what I'm going to do is Alt-A to deselect everything. I'm just going to manually Shift-select all of the faces that I want. So we're just going to go through here and select all of these. Do that however you choose to do it. Circle select, box select, whatever. I prefer to do it in this particular case manually. So we're just going to do like that. And like that. So, okay. And then to make sure that I've got everything, you know, where I want it to be and it's all symmetrical and everything else, I'm not going to select these other faces. I'm just going to go with what I've got here. And I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate. And then I'm going to right click to cancel the move operation. P to bring up the separate menu and separate by selection. Tab into object mode, Alt-A to deselect everything, and I'm going to select this one here. I'm going to hide the body, so now we have this. And the reason why I do that is because I want to reapply the origin to a specific point. So I'm going to tab back into edit mode. I'm going to go into edge select with 2 on the keyboard, Alt and click to do a loop or an edge select all along here. So it selects all of those edges together. Shift S, cursor to selected. Tab back into object mode, right click origin to 3D cursor, and if I bring up the move gizmo handles, you can see the origin has now been set here. And I can come over to the modifiers and add in the mirror modifier to the stack, which will mirror it on the X by default, which is what I've got it set up here for. If you have this rotated in a different position, you might need to do it on the Y or the Z or whatever, but for me it's on the X. Because I need to work with the additional geometry, I need to apply the modifier. So I'm going to do just that. Tab into edit mode, and then I'm going to do Alt and click to do a loop select to this, and press F to create a face. Alt-A to deselect, Alt click, and F to create a face there. Alt-A to deselect everything, and then Alt click to do a loop select there, and F to put a face at the top there. And I tend to do this quite regular. Sometimes it's not relevant, but I like to select everything and M and just merge the verts by distance and just make sure that it gives me a 0 value here so that I know all of the verts are merged. If I then come up to here and turn on the back face culling, we can see that normals are on the wrong side. They're on the inside and we want them to be on the outside. So here I'm going to go back into edit mode, make sure everything is selected. I don't know if it makes any difference. No. So Alt-N and bring up your normals panel or menu, and we want to go flip, and that will then put the normals from the inside to the outside, which is where we want them to be. Fantastic. So we're going to go back into object mode because I don't want all of these edges on my fill volume. I am going to create some of my own, but they will be edge loops, not all of these random edges all over the place. So to get rid of all of those, I could do it manually by just selecting them and dissolving the edges, but there's a quicker way with a decimate modifier. And if we select planar, that will then basically rejiggle the geometry to give us a planar setup. So it removes any unwanted verts and edges and whatever else that you don't really need. And if I apply that, go back into edit mode, you can see now it's much cleaner. Hasn't got any of those unnecessary edges all over the place. But I do need to create some extra edges because I don't want to have, when it triangulates it, I don't want it to be triangulated from here to here. I want it to be a bit cleaner. So what I'm going to do is go Control R to do a loop cut, and I'm going to scroll up on the mouse wheel till I get 4 loop cuts, left click, and then right click to cancel the move operation, and then Alt A to deselect everything. This will give me a nice setup, so when it triangulates, it's going to go from here to here, and here to here, and so on, and that will be a much cleaner setup for performance. And then what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to join these up, because I don't like them to be just at the end with no completion. So I'm going to shift select these and J to join, and I'm going to come round to this one here and shift select. So I'm going to select that one, shift select that one when it lets me, and J to join. There we go. And that's nice and clean. And again, always worth just merging your verts, make sure this is on 0, and you should be good to go. And then what we want to do is add in, well, first of all, what I'm going to do, if I bring up the NWin panel here, when you export something from the Giants editor, because the Z and the Y axis are flipped between the Giants editor and Blender, it kind of has to rejiggle things around to make sure that the mesh is pointing the right way up, and it then does that by giving it a 90° on the X axis. So we want to clear that out or apply it. So we go Control A and apply our rotation, which will put all of these back to 0, which is what we want. Fantastic. So now we can actually reapply our custom split normal data. So we come back over to the Object Data Properties tab here, scroll down to the Geometry Data and click Add Custom Split Normal Data. If we go back into edit mode, you can see now it's actually automatically applied the sharp edges where it believes they should be, and they, generally speaking, are done exactly where I want them to be. You might have to add in some manually, but the thing is with fill volumes, simple is best. You don't want to start creating fill volumes that are, you know, really weird and wobbly and whatever else. They need to be really simple. That's the idea behind a fill volume. You don't want to start creating stuff that's, you know, very complicated, because it won't work. So this is about as simple as it gets, so that's good for me. And it's added in my, or it's added in the split normal data, which has created my sharp edges for me, and that's fantastic. So everything looks great. So I'm also going to change the material name here, because by default, when you export it from the Giants editor, it's just going to call it default OBJ, and the more you add in, they will be called default OBJ1, default OBJ2, and so on and so on. So I'm going to rename this. By default, I believe they are all called Lambert 1 for fill volumes, because that's the default material in Maya. So I'm just going to copy that and call it Lambert 1, but you could potentially call that whatever you wanted. I'm also going to change the name here so it's more appropriate for what this actually is. And as it's a fill volume, I'm going to call it fill volume. Like so. And that's pretty much that. The other thing we need to do is tell it what it is and what we want it to do. So this is the extra parts of the i3D exporter from the GitHub. We now have access to some attributes directly in Blender. So we can select these here, and they will be automatically applied in the shapes file or the i3D file when we export it out. So we want cast shadow, receive shadow, non-renderable, distance blending. Because it's a fill volume, it needs to have the CPU mesh on. And we also have this extra one here for fill volume. If I hover over that, it actually tells you that there is some special naming of the index triangle sets for fill volumes. So we want to make sure we tick that, so it adds that extra information in for us. And that saves us a lot of messing around and editing of i3Ds manually and things like that. This will do it all for us, so that's great. So we've got everything set up there. We've got our rotation and scale set correctly. So all we need to do now is just take the name. So I'm going to go F2 and Control-C to copy the name and just press Enter to get rid of that. And we're going to export this out. So if I just go File, Export, i3D, and we'll go into the mod folder, so I can just put it where the mod is itself, and we'll paste in the name, Enter. Make sure you have this on selected objects. Don't worry about any of this. These parts down here are just for the debugging, because this is an alpha build. Obviously, the developers want to get information to see how things are working when they carry out the export operation and whatever else. But I would recommend to untick those, otherwise you'll end up with lots of log files and various different things. You won't know what they are and what they do and whether it's safe to delete them or not. So just untick the boxes and it saves a lot of hassle. And then just click export. Really quick. I mean, it's not much of anything to do to export anyway, so it should be quick. We can minimize that one. We go back into here. We'll double click on this. And I want to open this up, make sure that everything is where it's meant to be and that it has actually applied all of the correct attributes. So we come into the shapes, cast and receive shadow, non-renderable, distance blending, CPU mesh, tangents, all looking great. We can worry about other stuff later on. What I want to do though is get rid of this error. So we have some non-binary triangle index sets. So I want to create our shapes file. So we're going to go File, Save As, and we'll go into the folder here and select our fill volume, change it from binary i3D, from i3D to binary i3D, and click Save, Replace, then close that down, and then just reopen it again. And you can set all your other values up, clip distance and whatever else. So we come in here, 300, whatever you want to set that to. Make sure that everything is still ticked there. And that's it. Your error is now gone. You're good to go. Save. Close that down. We can now open up our trailer. And we can import it in. So if we just go File, Import, Fill Volume. So if I then come into here, and body, we have our fill volume here. So I'm going to go Control X, click on the fill volume transform group, Control V, and then I'm just going to move it up so it's just under the other one. Because of where I created this geometry from the body, the transform or the origin point is all the way at the back, so it will not match. But because I've done this already, I'm just going to take the data from here. So I'm just going to go left shift, left control and C, and then click on this one and click in here, left shift, left control and V, and it will put it back where it needs to be. And I can then remove that one there like so. And that's pretty much all you need to do there. Just make sure that all of your values and your attributes are all still intact, because on the odd occasion, for some reason, when I'm creating fill volumes, the CPU mesh tick box gets unticked, and that will then flag an error. So just make sure that that is ticked, and obviously all of the others that are appropriate, and you should be okay there. And we can just click Save. And what we're going to do is go to Game, and I'm going to test to make sure that the fill volume doesn't give me any issues with the cover, because this particular trailer has a cover on it. I don't want the product to be poking up through the top of the cover. So I need to test that to make sure that everything's working okay. We'll just go Save there. And then we don't need this anymore, so we can delete those, get rid of that, and then we'll just go into Game. So I'm using the Easy Dev controls, which is great for testing out your models or your mods or whatever else, because it allows you to kind of just quickly add in product, buy farmland, and whatever you need to do, reset vehicles, reload vehicles. So I recommend, if you're doing anything else, use the Easy Dev controls. It's really great for this. So we have our Stuart trailer there, start. And we'll go into Game. And then what we'll do is we'll just test out a couple of different things to make sure that they're all doing what they're meant to be doing. Okay, so I'm just going to, we'll buy the trailer. Whatever mod I've worked on, I always like to buy first, because if it doesn't show up in the store, you know straight away you've got a problem, and you can end up like buying lots of other things first. You think, oh, I'll get my tractor and I'll get this and I'll get this. Then you go to your mod and it's not in the store, and you've got to then restart the whole game again. So always test your mod first. Test you can buy it in the store first before you do anything else. So we'll get a blue tractor just so it all matches, and then we'll come over to the shop. So, you know, so far so good. And we'll connect this up. Like so. And then if we open up the cover here, just going to go Easy Dev Controls, and we'll go to the trailer, and we're going to put some wheat in it, so we'll just do like that. So we now have some wheat in our trailer, and everything looks great. It's the right size grain, doesn't look stupidly big or small. It's not poking out of any edges or wherever it needs to be. I have the console commands activated so I can quickly see there are no errors, so that's great. And if I close the cover, oops, we can see it sticks through just a little bit, so we need to make some adjustments there. So what I'm going to do is we'll tab back into the trailer in the Giants editor, and with the fill volume selected here, I'm just going to change the scale Y, which is the up and down, which again, as I said before, is different to Blender. Blender is Z up and down, but in the Giants editor it's Y is up and down. So I'm going to change this to 0.95 on the Y axis, and then what I'm going to do is apply the scale. So I'm going to come out to edit, freeze transformation, untick the translate and click the scale and apply. This will put everything back to 1, 1 and 1, and it should bring it down low enough so it no longer interferes with the cover. We'll test that. So come back into here, easy dev controls, and I'm going to reload the vehicle like so, and it looks like it still might be poking through a little bit there. What we might need to do here is tip it out and reload it. Sometimes with the dynamic fill planes and fill volumes, I should say, once they've been set, they are there, and you have to kind of empty it out and reload it again. So we'll just have a look at that and see if that's actually the case. So what I'm also going to do then, easy dev controls, and we will buy the farmland, if I can remember which one it is. This one here on. Okay, so we'll do Control I and we'll just tip this out. It might need to come down a little bit further. We'll have a look and see. But because I set the origin point at the bottom, it's always going to just scale the fill volume down from the top, so it won't ever affect where the position of the bottom of it is. That's the reason why I do that. Just helps out a lot when you're kind of working with these sorts of things. So we'll just kind of put some more product here just to see if it is that. It might be, it might not. So we'll just come back into here. Let's try barley, and we'll see if that's still got a problem. Yeah, it's still got a little bit of a problem. So if we come back into here, what I'll do is I'm just going to make the cover invisible just to make sure that I am actually scaling this correctly. Yep, looks okay. So what we'll do then is if I do let's see, what I'll do is if I undo this, and then we'll do 0.9. Let's try 0.9 on the Y. So we'll save that. Just see if that makes enough of a difference. It might need to go lower than that. We'll see. But you need to make sure you're scaling it on the right part. So if I remove the cover, so if I scale it on the Y, it's going down. So what we'll do then is we'll do 0.9. Hopefully that'll be right. And then we can go edit, freeze, scale, bring back the cover, save, and we'll reload the vehicle again. So let's do that. And there we go. So that's now just below the cover. So that's exactly where I want it to be. You could potentially go up a little bit, 0.93 maybe, something like that, but I don't like it to be too close to the cover. I think that's good. So what we can do is just unload this one and then fill it again just to make sure that it wasn't a fluke, and we won't have any issues with a different fill volume, different fill type. So we'll just let the trailer body drop all the way down, and then we'll do easy dev controls, and we'll do something like sunflowers, and then cover on, and there we go, not poking through it anymore. Perfect, there we go. So that's pretty much it. You know, I think there are a couple of things that obviously still need to be done manually. Obviously you need to create the fill volume yourself, whether you choose to do that in Blender, and then make sure that once you've got it how you want it to be, apply your custom split normal data so it gives you your sharp edges. Add in your loop cuts where you think appropriate. That might be a bit of an experimental thing, and you'll have to add more or less depending on the outcome. Name it appropriate for what it is. Make sure you tick the appropriate boxes here, and then, you know, like I say, always have the origin point at the bottom so that when I get into game, if I do have any issues with the cover, like you saw there, I can very quickly just come back into the Giants editor, scale the fill volume downwards from the top, because the origin's at the bottom. I can just scale it down from the top, reapply my scale, go back into game, and retest it again with the easy dev controls. Makes it much easier to do that until you get it where you want it to be. And that's pretty much that. And I think, you know, we have a fill volume that's working and all the rest of it. So hopefully what I've shown there points you in the right direction. See how you get on.